All right, let's go over what it takes to make your beer. I've always, I'd see some beer brand or some beer pop up every now and then that you'd be like, how are they making any money on that? And then you'd hear, 6 months down the road that they stopped making it because they finally put the pen to paper and they figured that they were losing money on that batch of beer, and so they just stopped making it altogether, or maybe they're limited amount and only releasing it once a year. They're not going out on distribution or what have you. So as a brewer, we're going to kind of walk you through on what it figures to make your cost of goods sold to make sure that you're actually making money on the beer you're brewing. So on this, I'm going to use some assumptions, on what I kind of went off of. I had a 10-barrel system, and so I had a 65,000 BTU boiler. So I just figured out what the gas was on that and halved it. All these are kind of rule of thumbs. It's not going to be an exact number, but it's something very close to go off of, and then you can kind of dive in deeper if you want to take a little closer look on what your brewery operates at. So the first one up on the screen is we're doing $6 pints. That's the assumption I use. Now when you set up your spreadsheet, use whatever you're using. Might be 5, might be 8, I don't know. I just use 6. It's kind of a nice round number that a lot of people are selling pints of beer at now. The assumption is about 1,260 pints poured out of that 5-barrel batch. That brings us to $7,560 for total income off this batch of beer. So we're going to kind of keep that up in the back of our mind as we kind of walk through. We're going to assume that at 65 cents a pound we had about $215 in the grain cost. We had about $16 in the yeast. That's repitching about 8 times. If you only repitch about 5 times, and you can do the math on that. And about 3 pounds of hops, about $10 a pound. Again, just rule of thumb, kind of show you where you're at and how to go about this. And so that's one part of figuring out what it costs you to make that. The other parts that you go into is water, gas, electric, cleaning supplies, labor, and taxes. These are all the things that I kind of figured up when I was going through on the cost of goods sold. And you can kind of see them up on the screen, or seen them up on the screen of what we did. Labor I had at about 20 hours. You might be a little bit more, a little bit less. And I used $30 an hour for the average wage. That's just the assumption I went with. And so that puts us, after we take, all the money that we make off the batch of what it costs us to put it in, into the keg, our gross profit margin is about $6,852. Puts us about 15% cost of goods sold, which is a good margin. You can have, if we did this for a 10-barrel system, it'd probably be about 10% cost of goods sold. If we did this for a 3-barrel system, it'd probably be about a 20% cost of goods sold. So you can kind of see on the financial side on how the efficiencies gained in your manufacturing process can go. Again, I used an assumption of a 65,000 BTU boiler. Figured the gas costs for that. The energy price is what I use, is what I'm used to. This is just kegging, not bottling, not packaging to distribute, not kegging for distribution. This is just a straight what's your tasting room doing. And again, the taxes are what I was kind of used to in the area. So you can kind of create all these assumptions, roll them up into a Google Sheet or in a Microsoft Excel file, and kind of figure out where you are at, and are you good, bad, and different. Rule of thumb, if you can keep your gross profit margin under 20%, you've got a fighting chance. Now, when you get up to 30 or 40%, that's where it gets kind of dicey to make it go. Facebook probably has a 1% gross profit margin, but we're never going to compete with Facebook on our industry. So just trying to help drive home that gross profit margin of, how can you attack the industry a little different to give you a little bit more of an edge and to keep the brewery open a little longer. So remember, always use metrics and data to drive volume and profit. Cheers.